Welcome to another version of the NetMonkeys Podcast. I'm Nick Gore, and today is quite an exciting day because it's off the back of a partnership with Boyum IT, and I'm joined today by some of the guys. We'll introduce ourselves in a second, guys. Just before that, one thing that we're going to be talking about today around Business Central, the headaches, the good bits, maybe the not so good bits, anything in the middle, and we're going to try and give you some insight into how we would fix some of those issues, give you some takeaways. Today, joined by Lawin and Stephen from Boyum, one of the biggest names, I would say, in the Microsoft and SAP add-on space. Yeah, and building your own ecosystem, which we'll get into as well, with the latest acquisition of 4Nav recently. And also we have Greg, our lead Business Central developer. So, guys, thanks for joining. We've got lots of pretty snacks and drinks, so let's kind of jump in with some intros if we can. Lawin, do you want to?
So my name's Lawin Lleto. I work for Boyum IT. I actually handle the partnership with NetMonkeys. I've been kind of working in the Business Central space since 2019, so that's what, 7 years now. I'd say my focus has been more on the manufacturing part of Business Central, although now I kind of try to just do more general, anything that the partner needs, and maybe we have some type of solutions that we can provide them. That's where I try to step in. But yeah, background-wise, more on the kind of manufacturing side of things.
Perfect. Okay. Stephen?
Yep, Stephen Rainbow, a solutions consultant for Boyum IT, specialising in PIM software. In particular, our application is called Perfume, which is not what people know, so it's a portmanteau of perfect information.
Okay, that's nice. I wonder how long that took to come up with. Yeah. Come on, Greg. I think that you've done a podcast or two before, so
one so far. Yeah, I'm Greg Cook, a BC developer at NetMonkeys. So I really sort of lead the technical side, and then creating some of the sort of custom developments that we add on to BC to really make it fit our customers and really get it working as they want it.
Perfect, thank you. So, Stephen, I guess, could you give us just a bit more kind of background on Boyum, maybe? So the Boyum story. I mentioned about their kind of a growing ecosystem, recent acquisition. I think there's been other acquisitions throughout. Yep. So yeah, give us a bit of a overview, if you can, on some of the different kind of products. Maybe both of you jump in on this bit. Yeah, give us some background.
Sure. So my journey with Boyum started as an acquisition. So initially I was an employee of Perfume. So both Boyum and Perfume were Danish companies.
Okay.
And then Boyum had this vision of this product value chain where they wanted to ensure that their supply solutions at pretty much every point of the product journey, from inception through to management, marketing, and delivery. And so Perfume slotted in really well into that ecosystem in terms of product management, alongside their other suite of products that I'm sure Lawin will be able to talk more to, things like warehouse management and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So for the last 4 years, I've been part of a fully fledged Boyum employee. And so I've seen the company grow along with the Netronic acquisition, which I believe is how you came on board, Lawin. And then, as you mentioned, more recently, the 4Nav acquisition as well.
Yeah. So how long have you been with Boyum then? So when did that acquisition take place?
So the acquisition with Netronic happened in 2024.
Okay.
So that's 2 years now. But yeah, just to add on to what Stephen was saying, like Boyum either like develops their own solutions or they kind of acquire other ISV partners who also have kind of solutions to kind of create that product value chain that Stephen was saying. So yeah, that's the goal.
Fantastic. Okay. And on the NetMonkeys side, and one of the reasons why we're here, I guess, together, is that not only are we an MSP and a Microsoft partner, we kind of spread our wings recently. So we're in Manchester, Nottingham, and London now. We cover Business Central. We do some custom development as well, which is growing in the team. And there is this somewhat of a misconception sometimes, I think, that when we speak to clients, either that's existing Business Central clients or people who are new and looking for a new ERP system, that Business Central will do everything end to end. We all know now there's an app store on our mobiles, whether, whatever ecosystem we're in there. Same goes with Microsoft App Store. We were having a brief chat before, weren't we, about how, Microsoft have piled a lot of money and effort into making sure that there's a BC App Store as well. So I guess one for all of us really, but to kick us off, what kind of clients do you typically work with? What gets kind of pushed across your desk? Give us a flavour for the types of businesses using the products that you guys have got.
It's very varied. I mean, we're very strong in the manufacturing space. When you say we've certainly got a history of clients in that industry. But it's very diverse. So I've actually done a couple of projects recently for toy manufacturers, wine distributors. I'm going to see a manufacturer of bike components in a couple of weeks, and also a very large customer in the airline industry that provides catering services to a multitude of various different airlines. So a lot of different verticals, a lot of different industries.
Okay.
But no particular specialism, to be honest.
Yeah. Lawin, Greg, same for you guys? Yeah,
it's very, very varied. And I think one of the great things about Business Central is that it meets the needs of so many different industries that we get to work with so many. And they say, I think we do quite a lot of manufacturing, particularly some like quite heavy engineering manufacturing. And then same again, you get into the food and then wholesale, and there's just quite a lot, isn't there? And there was always interesting and fun to work on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the amount of different solutions that we have, we just work with anybody basically. Like as long as you're using, as you mentioned, like maybe Business Center for us specifically. But yeah, the idea is that right now it's still maybe focused a little more on the manufacturing side. But as we do more acquisitions like 4NAV, so 4NAV is the solutions are not bound to like manufacturing. It's like really for anybody who's on Business Central. So I mean, we try to enter wherever like there's a gap in Business Center, maybe then we'll try to kind of offer something.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Great. And I think the way that the world is at the moment, and there's a lot around AI and automation and application sprawl, as we had a brief chat before, and that's what I love about NetMonkeys partnering with you guys. Not only is your suite of applications growing, but also there's that consistency, I think, as we mentioned earlier, and we'll get into. So getting into it then, we recognize the BC is a great platform, has been for many a year. I would probably say, Greg, that almost every business we speak to will say at some point, right, Business Central does mostly what I need. And then usually there's a bit of a but I specifically do this. So I've got an ERP system and an econ platform that will do something else. That's where Boyum lives, right? I guess, Lawin, give us some common gaps that you think businesses tend to hit, that's where you insert Boyum, I guess, at that point.
So I just thought about my experience specifically with manufacturing clients. So as I mentioned, a lot of my experience has been with manufacturing customers, and we see that, of course, standard Business Central has manufacturing capabilities, but as customers themselves grow, also they might outgrow maybe the standard functionalities. They might need something that's very industry specific. They might need something that, basically the standard doesn't anymore support, or maybe just that the amount of orders that they have, the amount of employees that they have, it's not anymore being managed perfectly by the standard. Yeah.
And Stephen, is that consistent with kind of what you see in terms of the other partners that you work with, other NetMonkeys, I guess, of the world and their client base?
Yeah, I would say so. So it tends to be the case that we will come into a business where they've hit the limitations of the applications that they have. And that may be, like you say, the e-commerce platform, an ERP system. And so in my particular area, when it comes to product management, they're finding that the ERP system tends to become particularly bloated because it's trying to perform a role that it isn't necessarily purpose designed for. And product data is getting increasingly complex with the likes of the digital product passport coming into the play in terms of legislation and so on. So the need needs to go beyond accurate and consistent product information to also perhaps store some more complex structures, and that's where applications like Perfume come in and support that.
Yeah. The scheduling, the product data, as we said, and we'll get into some of those bits. It's interesting. I mean, Greg, you're a developer. You get asked to build stuff all the time. Where do we flip? Here, where does it shift from we'll customize that for you to actually there's an add-on for that?
I mean, it's not always a clear line, but there's definitely some indications where the custom development, and we sort of call it in the Business Central word, these sort of PT extensions or sort of per tenant, when it really is just then tweaking either Business Central to really meet your specific business need and what you guys want to do. I think when you think to yourself, this must be a common industry sort of problem and something we need to solve.
Yeah.
That's when you should probably be thinking to yourself, well, someone probably already solved it. And then not only is it with the solution, they've also then got sort of the product to back it up and the skills and the knowledge to then back it up. And I think that's the point then where you should start thinking, well, rather than just trying to build something myself, can we try and explore what other options are out there? And the manufacturing is a great example in Business Central where there is that lightweight there. You can sort of build it on top of it, and we have done that. But there does get to a point where production planning and manufacturing is you're talking about huge amounts of data in quite big systems that then, right, well, let's try and get away from it being what we built and what we have to maintain and we have to support. And you're talking about the end user supporting internally at that point, because it is so custom to them to look at products like the visual planning that Boyum have, and then you can really get empowered by not only a great product, but also a great amount of skills and a great amount of support to back it all up.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of sort of old ERP systems we've seen where there's some fundamentally great stuff being built, but then the sort of users don't really know how it works anymore, or another developer comes in and just goes like, well, I don't want to work with this.
Yeah.
And you can sort of get yourself locked into that, and these products can sort of help with that especially.
And so I guess, it'd be really good, guys, if you could talk us through, and it might extend, Greg, into what you just said there, you kind of in practical terms, how other PIM or VAPs slot into BC. Because I think a lot of our clients would worry about bolting things on. We spoke before, around application sprawl, and maybe back in the day that was a big concern because integration wasn't what it is today, and because a lot of people worry about bolting on and losing sight of the entity, right? The solution. So yeah, big question for both of you. But how do Boyum design around that, I guess?
Yeah, well, I mean, let's strip it back to basics. What is the purpose of software? It's to make your life easier. And if the software isn't doing that, then it's not doing its job. So, and that is a risk when you're adding in layers and layers and so on. So we like to ensure that there is almost seamless integration between our products on the other ecosystems and applications that we touch.
Yeah.
You mentioned the BC store before, so that's where you'll find the Perfume add-ons to be able to synchronize data between our PIM solution and BC.
Yeah.
And the way that we share data takes a number of forms, so we can do that in real time. So you don't even have to leave BC through the use of a fact box. You've got a window into the product system, allowing you to really strip out all of that bloated data. You're potentially slowing down your ERP system because you've been misusing it as a product information management system. and allowing the individual applications to shine and do their best. But you also need to ensure that there's no barriers to adoption, so you're reducing the friction. And one way in which we do that is to integrate with Azure Entra ID.
Okay.
So you've got a single sign-on experience.
Yeah.
And in the case of those add-ins to BC, you're not leaving the application that you're in, yet we're still sharing information without the overhead of having to synchronize them in the background in real time.
Yeah. I mean, the next data synchronization is a consistent challenge, even with Dynamics products. So Dynamics CRM and Business Central, you get a customer service team who want lots of what they need, but you still want a single data source somewhere. If you can try and create that, so then you start synchronizing, gets a bit messy.
Yeah, it's easy to be scared of it, isn't it, I think? But the benefits it can give you if you go at it with a good strategy and implement it the right way. You mentioned performance. For me, that's like quite a constant battle with ERP systems, particularly quite long-term implementations, that you get a lot of this stuff added that just starts to hurt your performance in your ERP system, and it gets challenging when the real solution is like, does that data need to be in your ERP system, or is it better sitting somewhere else? And that's really what you guys can help solve.
And that's data. And then if we talk about what a visual product like, VAPS is doing, because that sits, am I right in saying that's slightly different in terms of where it sits in the,
Correct.
the whole ecosystem?
Yeah. I'd say because of the history that Boyum kind of acquires different companies who have products, they're not built the same.
Yeah.
In terms of how they are connected to Business Central. So Stephen mentioned a little bit how, it works with a PIM, with our Perfio and PIM solution, that it's still somehow synchronized, but it's not built inside of Business Central, wherein the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, for example, or VAPS, is built inside of Business Central.
Yeah.
And then basically it's fully integrated and fully synchronized in that way. If you make changes inside their product or Business Central, at the end of the day, it's the same. It's the same data.
Yeah.
But just want to go back to your question. Talking about should I build it or should I develop it myself? So if you think this way, and let's say, for example, I'm a manufacturing customer. I manufacture whatever parts for bicycles. I have the same kind of company in Czech Republic does the same thing. And if I'm NetMonkeys, if I create a solution for a customer here in the UK, but there are manufacturing companies with the same type of problem in different parts of the world, then why shouldn't there just be one vendor for that specific problem to be solved, right? So then the question is, does it even make sense to build it? And the other question is if I build it, I'm pretty sure Greg would be able to build a PIM solution by himself, given that he's very talented. But you have to keep it updated. You have to maintain the product once you build it. Every update of Business Central, you have to be ready. And at the end of the day, as a BC partner, does it make sense when there are other companies, maybe like Boyum, who kind of build these solutions that are sort of plug and play for any partner around the world? Right?
And as somebody who is a massive advocate of our BC team and the business apps stuff that we do, it's all about the end result, in that respect. But that can kind of be split. It could be end result for us to a degree, but end result for the client. So for the client, it has to absolutely work. It has to be dependable. It has to grow with the product, as you say. If Business Central gets updated, or you guys come up with something new, whilst we're looking at something else. And then for us, you're absolutely right again around the support that you mentioned, Greg, and it might feel like the path of least resistance is just to build something and it go, but we picked up many Business Central failed projects where there's no release notes, there's no training, there's no support. Things are massively out of date, and it's got to this huge problem point for them. We avoid all of that by working with you guys.
We've displaced systems that were built by somebody that's long since left the company, and it's basically running, and everyone's got I'm hoping and prayer, and if it fails, then it's a business critical system, and it's you don't want to ensure that you're reliant upon something that is that fragile.
Absolutely. So we'll get into non-product stuff in a minute, but before we do that, let's just have maybe a bit of a drop in into both of the kind of core areas that you guys look after. So we have spoken about VAPs, visual element to it. Obviously, we've got a few projects on at the moment, one in particular that we were just referencing before the podcast started. Let's just have a quick chat, I guess, in around it exists because of, do you know what I mean? So we know that there's a gap in BC. We've agreed on why we go this way rather than trying to do certain things ourselves. So yeah, just talk to us a little bit. You want to pick up on it first? It'd be really great. Yeah, talk about the product.
Definitely. So we have like a long history in creating like Gantt charts, and at some point of time we like put that knowledge into creating Gantt charts to make a fully integrated solution into Navision. That was back in 2013. Obviously that now has grown, and we have several products in our portfolio that are like Gantt charts for Business Central. One of them is the Visual Advanced Production Scheduler, or VAPS, and that's one of the products that, you know, we like, maybe our flagship product, I would say. And, you know, why would somebody need a production scheduler or a visualization for their Business Central manufacturing data? Well, obviously because of how Business Central is Business Central is a lot of tables, a lot of data.
Yeah.
And you can get lost in these tables, especially if you're just like a regular, maybe you're a production planner and that's like the market of ours or our product. They're production planners that typically use it, and you don't want them sorting through hundreds or maybe 20 different tables just to kind of make a conclusion as to, okay, what order do I need today? Or maybe a very simple question from a customer, when can I get that order ready? And a lot of times we see a lot of production planners can't really confidently say when it's ready. Oh, I need to check with my manager, I don't know, consult with my team, or I have like 20 spreadsheets that I need to make. I need to like read through. But with the solution that we give, the transparency we give based on standard Business Central data, he's able to confidently give an answer. So that's kind of like the question we try to solve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he's done that for particularly the client you were talking about before, Greg, the manufacturing firm we're working on at the moment.
Yeah, I think for them, they have had tools put in place to try and visually show their plan, but it's never quite ticked all their boxes for them. And they do have that challenge where production planning is like a constant change in picture, constant solving problems, and being able to go, well, this isn't going to happen, or this person's off ill, what's the impact?
Right.
With a sort of standard Business Central, it's really hard to sort of show that full view.
Correct.
And that's really where like they're seeing a lot of benefit come out of adding visual advanced planning, and they're really excited for it. And I think it sort of shows how good a platform it is and product it is, because they're really like realizing it's actually going to change the way they work in a lot of ways for the positive, but they're very excited about it, being able to find that plan, be able to visually see stuff. And I think it's sort of in your VAPS training, a lot of it says like, it's not just to switch it on and it does wonders for you. Like, it does do wonders, but I think when businesses really embrace that product, which they have, it really can get a lot of benefit out of them. And yeah, they're really excited for it, and the project's going really well.
Yeah, and at the same time, it is also about what you put into it. So pick, garbage in, garbage out. So if you put like lousy data, you won't be able to schedule anything that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But like for this kind of customer, for example, like confidently they'd be able to say, okay, what is person A doing today? What is person A doing tomorrow? And probably previously, it wouldn't be that easy for them to kind of get that information.
Yeah, and then be able to actually, like, they've got a machine not working for a week. What's the impact actually, that, like the impact for them in terms of their turnover, and also then what's the impact on their customers and their delivery dates. And they've always sort of struggled to quickly show that without a production planner having to go really like low level into individual jobs and move them out and stuff, where the visual planning lets them see it and lets them work out how they prioritize sort of all at once. And
I think, Stephen, that possibly help segue into the PIM piece really, because the data stuff, removing the spreadsheets to a degree, or the bits of data set. So yeah, give us, drop us into the world of the PIM from Boyum.
With the product information management system, it's not particularly specific to Boyum when they have the streamline, that single source of truth. That's a great way of encapsulating the benefits that a PIM system provides. So it may well resonate with either your current situation or previous situation, whereby you have product information in a number of disparate sources. It's being gate kept, it's being kept in silos. It might be unstructured. It might be on a spreadsheet that is on a network share that's been lost and the drive's gone down and so on. So it's not secure and it's not accurate, and it's not giving people the confidence in being able to confidently talk about their products. And it's actually, in some industries, it's not just a case of a lost sale. It can actually be something as critical as life and death, when you're talking about products that need to go into medical environments and so on and so forth. So it's absolutely key to ensure that the product information is consistent and accurate as well. You've got to have that confidence. And it's no good once it's there sitting in that silo. It needs to be shared and distributed amongst whichever consumers need to use this data. So that could be a salesperson on the road, it could be an e-commerce platform, it could be a sales team, it could be someone that's do some reporting on the data to feed up to management and so on. So there's lots of use cases.
And where VAPS has got this drag and drop production scheduling and the visual stuff that it really enhances the BC offering. And here we're talking around again, enhancing the descriptions, the attributes, the images, of all of the product set, and helps with integrations into other products, right? So e-commerce as an example, and because we can get into a bit of a mess there sometimes, I think, with not necessarily the VAPs and the visual stuff, but when it comes to where our product information sits and we're trying to then sell online or sell onto different platforms.
Yeah, so one hat the perfume wears is to ensure that your product data is enriched, but we're talking about sharing it and keeping it within the silo, because it's no good in that sense. And so the way that we enable the sharing of this data is that we have like a low-code environment that allows you to build your own integrations, and we also have standard connectors to the major e-commerce platforms and ERP systems such as BC and SAP and so on.
Perfect. All right. So really good, real-world examples there. So let's talk about the reality of an ERP implementation. I guess I laugh a little bit because depending on the journey of a client, they could be growing, it could come from small product, like a finance product, maybe a Xero or QuickBooks. And then now they're looking for something to do everything. So it would be good to leave the tech aside for a second and talk about what it means, and what a business is struggling with when it comes to ERPs. Because in my experience, it kind of rarely is it the tech that's necessarily the hard bit. We've got a lot of people, we've got a lot of data. How does that land with you guys? What stories do you hear from your partners and end users around, some of the bits that they're struggling, with when implementing the ERP system?
First of all, there's the thorny question of the natural order of things, and in my world, when it comes to a PIM, do you embed the ERP system initially and then bring the PIM system downstream? But actually, there's a lot of benefits to reversing that process, because you're then loading your ERP system from the PIM, confident in the knowledge that it's all clean data that's going in, that's structured.
Yeah.
There's also, for me, more moving away from the product specific aspect of it, is to ensure that you're getting the buy-in from the stakeholders quite early on, because you need to ensure that I mean, putting in business critical systems such as an ERP into the landscape, you need to make sure that that change is managed carefully, because it can be disruptive, and it can be a scary prospect to some people.
Yeah.
And it's no good having the world's best tech ecosystem if you haven't got the end users that are engaged in actually using it. Otherwise, it's useless.
Yeah. I've learned that with being IT support for my family for many a year.
Indeed.
You know, you can give anybody the latest and greatest tech. So I guess scope creep. I guess when it comes to VAPs, Lawin, and any development we do, Greg, it feels like maybe if we bite off too much too soon, or maybe there's a lack of understanding there, you know.
Yeah, I think the understanding is quite a big one. Like Business Central is a big product now, and you have a lot of this stuff you can add on to it. But as an end user, trying to stay on top of all that understanding can be a challenge. But the customers who do buy in, and they sort of do end up having quite experts in Business Central, get a lot of value out of it. The number of times I've had like development come my way and someone's asked for something, and I've sort of gone, well, Business Central already does that, because they've just not been aware and not had that understanding of the product.
Yeah.
And then once they can sort of get that and understand it, they really can get the full value out of Business Central. And like similar then when they install VAPs and stuff, it is such a powerful product. The more they can spend on understanding and learning about it, the more benefits they'll get out of it.
Yeah.
I think some people sometimes see products as like, well, just install it and it'll work. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes some of the apps on your phone and stuff nowadays are like that, but an ERP is always going to be fairly complex. And the more effort as a business you can be in understanding all of that, just the more value they always get out of it.
It saves you 10 times the effort down the road if you put that in at the outset and plan it. You get people that they're so keen to get their hands on, but the correct way to do it, in my opinion, is to invest in that discovery and planning early on.
Yeah, like we would have some very simple examples where we go in and sit with an end user and like we do something with the keyboard and you go, what have you done there? And you're like, I'll just hit F8 and I've copied the thing above, and they're like, I've not known that. And it's like 2 years of using a system and not knowing about some fairly basic features that give you a lot of like a performance gain and make you a lot quicker in the way you work. It's huge.
But I think one side of it, one very important side of it, is that the people, the end users really need to be open. So it doesn't matter if you get the buy-in of the managers and they buy the system. It has costs involved in it, and sometimes those costs can be a lot. But if you don't get the right people inside the company to really embrace the change, and this is a very big topic, change management is something that people learn in MBAs or whatever. This change management really, really big topic, and they have to understand, okay, change is coming. What's the best way to deal with it? We have to be open. In my line of work, I experience a lot of people, like really heavy Excel users, and they are afraid of moving out of their whatever 20 sheet or 80 sheet.
You
Excel. Because that's the world he knows. That's what he's been working with and that's his comfort zone. And somehow he has to change everything, move into Business Central, and sometimes a lot of them think about, another maybe big topic, job security. Maybe because of this, am I still relevant in the company? So a lot of people are like not really open to change, and you see that might be also a generational thing. Maybe younger people always be more open, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges of a BC project.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think the projects that really go well for me are the ones where them end users actually get time invested into them, and it's not just them being shown what to do, it's them understanding why and the value that it adds to the business. And once they can sort of like see why the change is happening, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit them, but they see the benefits elsewhere in the business, once they can start to see that, they do really buy in. And I think that's always really important. Some businesses go at it quite discipline heavy and they're like, you need to do this, and they're never sort of told why. And then it's hard then for them to justify it.
So really good bit there around the good and the bad, I guess, and the challenges around ERP implementations, adoption and people. Nice segues there. We're talking about some of the people there. We'll all jump in on this. Stephen, maybe you kick us off on, why is it that some employees might resist a new system? I get asked that quite regularly after implementations.
Yeah, it's it's nothing new, and it's not necessarily tech related. I mean, here we are in the heart of Manchester, the textile district, and you think back to when the Industrial Revolution, and then these machines were coming in and replacing the seamstresses that were doing everything by hand, and then the Luddites raided the factories and smashed the machines up. So it's an age-old story. It's just resistance to change, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, and you're perhaps got these scenarios whereby there's been a procurement process and there's been no engagement with the actual end users at the end of the day. So they feel disengaged. They feel like this application's being foisted upon them, and they have a certain comfort around the legacy systems that they've been using because they know them without even having to think.
Yeah.
So that's often a barrier to adoption and success.
We talked earlier a little bit about, the fear of maybe being replaced or jobs changing. I guess that's that lack of control.
For sure. I mean, they're used to it. They know what they're doing, and then all of a sudden they're 2 years before retirement, and they have to learn something new. Of course, they're not going to like that, and they'll think,
Yeah.
is my job still secure for the next 2 years?
Yeah. And it's a challenge, isn't it? Because it will still happen. Things are going to still change. And being in control of it, doing it the right way, feels like the main point. Okay. So, Greg, from a build perspective, how much of the adoption comes down to the system being set up in the right way at the beginning? So that users there, could be a good day, could be a bad day, depending on what they're presented with, right?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two parts of it, like getting Business Central configured the right way, and particularly letting the end user understand why it's getting configured that way. I think the costing is quite a good example of where the finance team are quite slow to change, and they really want to understand what's happening. And then people can come in and say, oh yeah, we're doing average costing, and they might not really understand what that means in the Business Central term, what's actually happening in the background. And that's why I think like explaining the configuration about like, we're doing it this way and it fits your business well. And really it is always the end user's decision, but making sure they can be as informed and understand as possible and not feel like it's quite a common one where like people think Business Central's doing a bit of magic in the background, and it is a complex system, but once you can understand it and understand its logic, it makes it a lot easier to work with. And it goes the same way on the build side a lot, where quite often we'll be building something that's come from an end user and they've got an idea and it'll really help their business, but sometimes they can get a bit structured into wanting sort of what they've decided and what they've come up with. And I think being able for them to be willing to sort of communicate with the developers and us and stuff, we can then really explain to them, well, this is how we build it to really fit the sort of Business Central patterns or the best performance. And I think that's quite an important part, where sometimes people have someone in their head, they pass it over, they get something back and it's not exactly what they had in their head.
Yeah.
And then they can really be sort of negative on it and not what they want, rather than being more focused on what the sort of outcome of the product is and the development is, where they wanted to solve this problem. We sort of help them build it the best way, not just to solve the problem, but also long term to sort of be sustainable, be like extending and follow the best sort of patterns, whether that be developer patterns or even sort of business process patterns. I do say it quite a lot, like you don't need to reinvent stuff that's happened before.
Yeah.
I think with manufacturing is a very common one where I always go, you don't need to reinvent manufacturing. We've been doing it hundreds of years. There's good patterns to follow, and if you follow them, then it's a lot easier to onboard new customers and stuff. But a lot of that, same again, it all come back down to the people and really being able to then get people engaged and people understood. And as you say, like the more the touch points you can have and the more sort of understanding they can have, even on the technical level, they might not understand the technical level, but they can understand the positives. And if they can get explained, look, technically we want to do it this way and it will lead to these positives, which is different to what you want, people generally buy in. Yeah. And I think that's quite an important part of really being like close to your system and understanding it and being part of that journey.
Yeah, and I think what all three of you said there is something that we hear and we see quite a lot in projects. I think those businesses that adopt and treat an ERP implementation like a product, not a project, typically the ones who win out. So they're in a project start and end date, maybe finished, whereas a product is we would manage a product, or you guys might manage a product at Boyum, right? So it'd have an internal owner, it'll have a roadmap, the system will get better after go live, it has the next stages. And it's the ones that we see that put something in and then walk away, or want everyone to walk away, that tend to see those sort of challenges of lack of buy-in.
And I think in some way that loops back to sort of your culture of change, where historically a lot of ERPs have had that sort of, we're changing it, we're going live, and then there's been 10 years of it not being touched.
Yeah.
And so when they see this sudden change coming in, they're sort of worried that the same thing's going to happen again. And you can understand them, where having a new system that potentially will have issues and not the efficiency that you want, and feel like you're stuck with that for 10 years.
It's gone like past 3 years.
Exactly.
Whereas being a bit more willing to understand that it is a journey, and you go live with it's like the ERP, and then you can keep improving it as you go, and being quite agile with it, sort of is easy to embrace then, and being able to like, oh, we might have this bit of a pain point at the moment, but we know it will get fixed, and so we'll make do, rather than this pain point is really going to make me disengage with the entire system.
And so I think that sort of brings us on to like our last topic, to be fair, because part of the reason we got together is around the new partnership and some of the stuff that projects we're working on, and or the upskilling that we're going to be doing in some ways in your product set and so on, which has been great. So, I mean, Lawin, maybe you jump in on this one first, is what makes a good ERP partner, right? Okay, you sat in our offices, there's a bit of pressure painting the NetMonkeys picture, but, what you see a lot of partners, in your view, how do we become one of the best partners that we can be? What does good look like?
Right. So, I work with a lot of partners, so I don't just handle the UK, but I'm based in Germany. I also handle, for example, the German-speaking region, Eastern Europe, Southern Europe. So I work with a lot of partners in a lot of different countries.
Yeah.
And what I'll say is like, there are partners, of course, different sizes. Some are much bigger than the others, some are smaller. But at the end of the day, a lot of it goes down to really like caring, like just caring about their customers. Because sometimes some partners would treat their customers like as numbers, and then sometimes even the customer doesn't feel like they're being heard. Maybe sometimes they think that they're being overlooked as a customer, and that's not a nice thing to have buying any product, right?
Yeah.
And it boils down to customer service and having the right people there. Obviously, for me, that's it.
And I think on top of that, the collaboration between providers. So like, we've got a close relationship with Microsoft. Why does it matter, Stephen, for someone like us to have a partnership with you rather than what you might be lured into doing, which is just treating you like a supplier with a price list? Do you know what I mean?
Well, we like to think of ourselves as a trusted partner, and we fulfill our side of the bargain by ensuring that we have subject matter experts, and so we don't expect you to be able to become experts in our product suite right from the outset. So we provide that support to you where you will shadow implementations, but the key aspect there is to ensure that internally between yourselves as the partner and us as the vendor of the software, that everyone understands and knows their roles, and there's just one consistent message and view that the customer's receiving.
Yeah, and we can't do everything, and that's the thing. We've got a really broad skill set here, which is fantastic and we're proud of. It's challenging as well, and it can't keep going like this because it will break. We have to be certified in what we do. We have to have the support mechanisms for when these things go live, and we can't do that with everything. So building our own, I've used the word ecosystem a few times today, but that end-to-end sort of ecosystem with people like yourselves. So it's not finger pointing it, and when things break, we just know who to go to and who we can rely on. And like you say, Stephen, bring in the skill set when needed. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, look, I mean, we managed to, in a couple of the breaks, is eat a few of the treats, which was good. And yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we've got there, which is great. And I really appreciate you traveling in. If we were to try and distill some of the things we've spoken about down to a point, if we go around the table, what's a piece of advice that maybe either about BC or anything else that you think around an ERP implementation that you might have for any of our clients that may have BC, may not. But yeah, one bit of advice if we can, Stephen, if you start.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, it's just about ensuring that you're devoting as much time as you need to the discovery aspect of it and the planning, rather than just launching in there and starting to install and then rolling out the software and the stars and the training at the outset. Because I mentioned it before that every hour that you spend will save you 10 times that time later down the line.
Yeah, perfect, great. Lawin?
I think for me, maybe if you're a customer listening in, I think it's important to understand that your problems are not unique. A lot of customers think that their problems are unique, but there are like other companies in different countries and maybe different industries even that will have the same problem as you. And there are tools that have been developed by Microsoft, by us, that could potentially help you with your problem. So that's what I want to say.
Greg?
Yeah, I think with an ERP implementation, there's a lot of decisions to be made and a lot of ways a solution can go in and be configured and developed. And I think for me, it's just sort of being open to be part of that journey and really take the understanding to sort of find the best way to get it implemented, not be set on that, well, we only want one system in because it might not be the best fit for you, and really take on board all the sort of information that's out there.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's almost kind of a summary of what I think you three guys have said, because I think that's all fantastic. And we said a minute ago about treat it as a product owner, right? Versus a project. It's a long-standing process. Many of our clients have had their ERP system for years upon years and years, and so treat it as if it's a long journey rather than a quick trip.
Yeah,
guys, brilliant. Love to do some maybe webinars with you around some of the products at some point. That would be amazing. And we can get on it together. Greg can help facilitate that with the team here. It'd be great to see you in that forum. We'll have some events. We'll do some customer events as well, either here in Manchester or possibly in Nottingham, and where we've got our bigger locations. So it'd be great for you to come along. Yeah, perfect.
Sounds perfect.
Nice one.
As well.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.